You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Cobra Commander, number 5, and it ends up being the finale. It was weird by the end. It didn't feel like quite a finale.
No,
like
not
Duke
at all.
felt like a real finale. This
Yes.
just felt like, okay, is there another issue? Or you can tell with the things coming up. When Duke ended, you can say to yourself, all right, this is going to be cool. Eventually we'll get a G.I. Joe book, right?
Yeah.
When this happened, I'm like, okay, this is going to continue in the Destro miniseries that's coming up, in a couple weeks. That's all I thought right away, but maybe that's kind of cool too, that you progress off to it. But we've liked the idea of Cobra Commander just being insanely manipulative and figuring out things. So that does continue. But again, it almost becomes a bit of instead of Cobra Commander finale, it seems like it's melding in the Destro stuff to then go off to maybe the Destro book. But it is Cobra Commander, number 5, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Andrea Malena, colors by Annalisa Leone, letters by Russ Wooten. And yeah, you start off with Destro. You start off with Destro pretty pissed off that everything is going to hell for him. People are blowing up all of his offices, all these things going on. And he wants to know who was responsible for the attacks. And you end up having his guys bring in a guy. And if you're paying attention, I didn't realize at first who it was, but if you're paying attention, you can kind of tell who it is. But you end up where they have a guy in a hood and they take it off, and it's the piece of crap Dreadnoks in the deal here, where this was set up, where Cobra Commander said, I want you to go to the guy that you're selling the stuff to, tell him I'm, want to meet him. All these things going down through this. It's okay. It just, in this, again, I expected more of but this makes sense. They're going to go off and Destro's going to meet up with the Cobra Commander, which we know. It just kind of is a weird play. I might have wanted, we start with Cobra Commander and then you just have Destro show up and then you get to it just so the focus is on him. But it's a good way. It's a good way to start. But that they're in big trouble. But it's Destro. So, Destro's not in. It's that whole play. But they end up going off and they land in this town. And what threw me off in this is the last time we saw Cobra Commander, the guy was not in the best of shape. I mean, he had fought through things. This feels like a bit more of a time jump than I thought. You know what I'm saying?
He had to have time to build this whole town, so yeah.
Yeah, unless he just took it completely over. But I believe that seems to take time.
I think he says in the book he built this town.
Built it. And so in that threw me off, where I thought they were going to end up going to where, there's Cobra Commander, cracked mask, is this, but he's threatening. But no, this is different. It feels like time has passed. And I think that's why at the beginning, maybe Destro's going and looking over all of the footage of these things blowing up and stuff to show us, this kept happening. Time has passed. But in this, you do end up knowing that how crazy things are and how, crazy the idea of Cobra Commander. And you do have the Dreadnought is Ripper. And say, he ends up like, oh man, the guy's crazy. You got to realize this. But Destro's playing it up like, really? Because I'm pretty crazy myself. I'm not afraid of anybody. So he gets off with these guys. This canister type thing activates. It's pretty much a laser defense crazy system here that starts just blowing up people. I thought Destro got shot through the head. I actually thought the way that splat was and how it came up, but instead it's just soldiers getting killed and their blood splashing on him. And we see from that outfit of his, like that. But it is to get, and what you have here is Cobra Commander wanting to get the attention of Destro. Destro actually says, why would you do this even when it's his own guys? You end up at one point where Cobra Commander's just going to kill his own guys, and he says, I don't care about them. That's just one step in the deal. There's always more. And you see, he recruits crazy people with the idea of a cult kind of deal. Hey, I can make you mean something to yourself, all that stuff going on. But in the meantime, he just rips apart and kills all these soldiers that are with Destro. Of course, Ripper is still there. You end up having this guy Mercer and Destro, and he says to Mercer, go earn your pay. I'm telling you, this Mercer, he's a little too big for his britches when he's just seen what happened. And he's like, cha-ching, as the earn the pay, and just picks up Cobra Commander. And Cobra Commander even says, wouldn't they think there's guns on you, whether this is true or not. You would think that the way that this, or that laser thing could just start firing again, right? And he's like, what are you doing with this? This is how you repay me. I have guns aimed at your head. You're here as my guest. Like you said, he said, I built all this stuff crazy. Then he says, come with me to this lab. Even this looks crazy, the way it's set up and the idea of how I think that he just got out of the swamp. Again, somebody will say like, oh no, they explain. Tell you, it threw me a bit, as if we have to end this at 5. And maybe we could have had an issue between of him build. I don't know how great it is to watch him make people build things and stuff, but it might have been kind of cool. And
yes.
then, and then you're introduced to Dr. Laszlo Vandermeer, where they say, here's my guy. He's the doctor. I allow him to do experiments, and then he has the freedom to do crazy stuff himself. They have that little bit of an understanding now that it's gotten to this point. And then he just kind of pulls away to talk to Destro. And in this, he's going to convince him that I have a plan that you will like. And it's weird because what he's doing is saying, these bats, these armored, robot soldiers that you have, I can make them better. That's all really this is about at this point. I have an unlimited energy supply that I can tell you about. So it ends up where it's so weird. It's like more of the idea that Cobra Commander is just good at R&D, and he's figured out a better way because I'm telling you, the bats that we saw that just got destroyed by Duke didn't come flying in with Tony Stark Iron Man boots and crazy lasers and things out their chest. It is kind of impressive. Yeah. But I'll give it to you. The thing that I thought was cool in this is once you have Destro seeing these things, Destro starts thinking about what Duke said about there were robots that changed from a jet into a car or a truck. He seems to think maybe this would be Cobra Commander's thing. Everybody seems to think that these robots are somebody else's thing when we do see that they kind of know too. They might be the big thing. You end up seeing Cobra Law is aware of a lot more of this overall, but that's when to go with, hey, I want to show you how good my version of your bats are. I'm going to kill everybody who helped make this village. Here they go. They're dead. and they're just ragtag guys. I mean, one guy's in a hoodie. This isn't quite an impressive looking army. They're just regular people, and he just blasts them just to show Destro, number one, aren't they cool, my bats? Number two is definitely, I will kill people if you cross me. And even if you don't, I will kill people. Pretty crazy. But I'll go with you to the deal because all through this, Cobra Commander's dressed up like he thinks he's Phantom Stranger or something through this whole thing, right?
He's dressed like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, and he's doing this like to not reveal who he is, but I'm not so sure that Destro knows this anyway, because when he reveals it, it's just like kind of weird and wonky the way it is. I thought Destro's going to be like, all right, whatever you say, dude. Like, it's more impressive they have an energy source and these flying bats, but I'll give it to you because then he says, who are you? And he reveals, he throws all these disguises aside and says, I am the future. You go from there because we're almost done. But the thing is, though, it is pretty cool having that moment, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When he takes off the trench coat and he reveals the Cobra Commander uniform and he puts on the helmet, it's just so spectacular seeing. And he's like, I am the future. And then, he turns to the Dreadnought Ripper and he's like, okay, you got your freedom now. You can run. And Dreadnought's like, are you kidding me? The minute I turn my back, you're going to shoot me. I'd rather be part of y'all.
I like when he says that. And Cobra, tell him what Cobra Commander says, because it's almost a test, right?
Yeah. He's like, I guess you do have some brains after all.
Yeah. Yeah. He was going to shoot him.
Yeah, he was going to.
He was going to shoot him because he ran away. But he said, I'm not running away. Screw that. Even then, earlier, it's like Ripper, you get that because even the little I saw of the cartoon, especially in the G.I. Joe stuff, a lot of times when you get the Dreadnoughts, kind of me saying like, these guys are just kind of scumbags. Like they just hang together, they have their accents and they're doing their thing. They're not quite as evil maybe as so when he gets involved with this stuff, at one point he's like, I just want to go drink soda and eat, donuts. And what am I doing here? And now he's like, I'm not running because you'll shoot me. I see what you're doing here. You're trying to, set me up. But I'll go with you again because you end up the main story here where they're in this town. They say, okay, he made this town, but you also see that he's gathering up troops. And you do get a very, like I've even seen this kind of scene recently in the Larry Hama, the G.I. Joe book that continued
Real American
on,
Hero.
where Cobra Commander loves to gather a crowd and yell things at him and start cheering and stuff because that's kind of what happens, right?
Yeah, so he just starts giving this whole monologue talking about like, oh, you all came here not because of what I have to offer, but to find purpose. And, he starts giving them a whole spiel. It's like, I was once lost too, but it took pain for me to see what I'm truly capable of. And, through me, we can become Cobra.
And you have that, and it's pretty cool. And again, saying that to a bunch of people that, that guy's got a trucker hat, a long beard, that guy's got a hoodie.
It's kind of a...
when he's saying it at first, like you have a guy with like a Washington football team sweatshirt. Like you don't even, these aren't quite the Cobra troops that you would think. They're just standard, look like people who are, that guy was boarded up because he thought that there was an apocalypse coming. That guy was just in town getting feed for Pa. I mean, all these things going on. These are just like kind of just guys that seem to be hanging, but it's a start. And I do like when he says, I don't mind killing my own people. There's more. I'm thinking he's saying there's better because these guys seem like crap.
There is better.
Yeah. And I love too, like you said, Cobra Commander, what I get in this and what Joshua Williamson does pretty funny. And I don't know tons of Cobra Commander, but we've seen him being just, tortured. And we saw that manipulative thing that he could turn people against. But what we really see in this is that he loves the pomp and circumstance. He waited until Destro says, who are you? For him to throw off his Carmen Sandiego deal and say, I am the future. And now in this, the future. What I love about this is he's there and Mercer's a big dude. Right, it's there behind, and it's you end up Destro and Mercer are watching like they want to be impressed. So while these guys aren't impressive, you even have a little panel where you see that the banner that he's made, like he had this banner made so that when he gets to a point, it hits the deal and it swooshes down with the Cobra symbol on it, so he can yell, "We are Cobra." Surprised these yahoos aren't like shooting their guns into the ceiling. The ceiling, they're like, "Ew!" and the ceiling's falling down. He's like, "Dummy, stop doing that!" But
they shoot the Cobra logo into the ceiling.
Oh, it'd be the best. But again, he doesn't care that these people, whatever they are, they're still his army, and he's riling up the troops and commanding them. That's all he wants to be the commander. Yeah, and if it happens to be that they die, they die. But then there's the Cobra Law backup, and in that, pretty cool.
Yeah,
you end up, and again, the idea of Cobra Law is not, I don't know a lot. No. But what we've gotten so far, and the idea that they did have Cobra Commander, but they were duping him because they don't want an outsider, you end up having Globulus, which I always want to say different, but then you even get Pythona, all these things going on of them with a bigger game. The idea where we see, telling you, we see ragtag homeless Cobra Commander army. And then we go off to Cobra Law where they're aware of Cybertron. They're aware of the Transformers. They're aware of a war. And you're going to have Python even say, I'm going to take the war to space. And I'm going to see what's going on. These are invaders. They're the ones who know what's really going on. Yeah. I mean, even if you go with like a Duke, where we took, he saw, he ended up seeing Starscream. But he doesn't know that Starscream is part of the Decepticons that are versus the Autobots. They seem to know. Cobra Law seems to know exactly what's going on, that there is a war between these factions and they can take advantage of it. So it looks pretty threatening in that, but also a cool way to maybe veer off into something else as well. Maybe this ties into, say, Avoid Rivals. I don't know. Or maybe we'll get something else down the line. But
maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Like, definitely absolutely. The first part leads into the Destro book. I mean, how could it not? You end up, unless you went, the Destro book suddenly is, oh, wait a minute, back in the day. If it continues, it'll be cool because it's Destro, but we'll also get some Cobra Commander as well. So I think that's kind of cool. But overall, it seems big by the end, and I liked it. Again, this ends. I was very upset Duke ended because I was really liking it. So, but I'm excited to get a G.I. Joe book, especially with the Energon special that kind of pointed out some more things. But when we get this, again, I wanted it. It ended in a weird way, but at the end, I thought it's still pretty good. Right? What would you give it?
I think I'm gonna give this a 8 out of 10. I still really enjoyed it. It's not as great as the ending of Duke was. Duke's finale was just chef's kiss, mwah. This doesn't really. I mean, it ends, but not exactly like with a bang. It's more just like we'll be continuing in the Destro book. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing. But it's still really good. You still get to see Cobra Commander finally become who he is, even if the Cobra army is not exactly what we wanted to be.
Yeah,
yet.
that's the funny part. I think that and again, if somebody says, well, Jim and Zach, they end with, we are Cobra. That is but I'm saying the ending of them going to this made up, it really threw me off a bit of the timing and things like that and seemed a little odd for what we got before. But at the end, like you said, I'm an 8 out of 10.
Weird science is the revolution.